Welcome back to Rome Unveiled. I am Sarah. I am still here with the brilliant Giovanni. He is the expert voice you hear on our app.
It is a pleasure to be here with you, Sarah.
Giovanni, last time you left us with a big question in the Roman Forum. You connected Rome's wet, swampy start to the story of Romulus and Remus. Today we continue right where we stopped. You were going to take us up the hill. You were going to tell us the story of the 7 kings.
I was. To do that, we must leave the low ground and climb. We are standing now on the Capitoline hill. Feel that wind? You are always a little above the noise of the city up here.
It is definitely quieter. Down there is a sea of people and cameras. Up here, it feels important, more serious.
It always was. This was Rome's fortress, its sacred heart. There were 2 high points. One was for religion and the army. The other was the Capitoline. The greatest temple in Rome would stand there one day. This hill was the final stop for every winning general's parade. It was the home of the gods who protected the city. It was the final goal of Roman power, but it was also the beginning.
So this is where the story of Rome's kings really starts? After Romulus drew his line on the Palatine Hill?
Exactly. The Palatine Hill was the cradle, the starting place. But the Capitoline Hill was the throne. This was the public face of Roman power. Imagine it is not today. The sound of cars disappears. The modern buildings are gone. It is the 7th century before the Common Era. The air smells strongly of cooking meat from animal sacrifices. You can smell the sweat of 1,000 people below us.
Okay, I am trying to see it. No marble yet, I think.
No, not yet. Everything is wood, baked clay, and heavy dark stone. Look, a line of people is coming up the path. At the front is a man. He wears a deep purple robe. His face is painted red, like a statue of a god. He holds an ivory stick, a scepter.
That is the king?
That is the king. Today, he is starting the building of a great temple. It is a temple to the gods who protect Rome. The gods are Jupiter, the best and greatest, his wife Juno, and their daughter Minerva. He raises his hands. The crowd becomes silent. He says this hill and this temple will be the eternal heart of a city. This city will rule the world.
Goosebumps. This is the part where I always feel a little lost.
Because everything here was important. And it was all important at the same time.
Exactly. You walk past the Arch of Titus, the Basilica Julia, the temples. Unless someone explains it slowly, it all mixes together.
It is easy to get lost in the noise down there. That is why we made the Rome Audio Tour Guide offline app. It acts like that person who explains it slowly. You can see everything at your own speed.
And you can choose what to learn about. Politics, history, religion, daily life. You can even skip parts if you want. It is like walking the forum with a friend who knows the story.
Exactly. To really know the story, we must go back to the start of that big dream. The story of the 7 kings. It begins with a storybook founder, Romulus. He was a warrior who made the city with violence and hard work. But a city built only on violence cannot last. It needs something more.
So after all that chaos at the start, the kidnapping of the Sabine women and killing his own brother, what did Romulus do next? Did he try to make people like him?
In a way, yes. The old stories say he ruled for many years. He created the army and the first Senate. But then he disappeared in a big storm. Rome had a big problem. It had soldiers, but it had no laws. It had no peace. It had no gods. The city was like a wild animal, not a real community.
it needed someone to make it more civilized.
Yes, so the Romans chose a Sabine man named Numa Pompilius. He was the complete opposite of Romulus. Numa was a thinker, a man of peace. He said he learned the secrets of law and religion from a spirit of the water named Egeria.
A water spirit, of course. So they go from a warrior founder to a mystic lawgiver. That is a big change.
It is the change from just surviving to building a civilization. People say Numa made the Roman religious calendar. He made days for work and days for the gods. He started the priesthoods. This included the Vestal virgins, who cared for the sacred fire. It also included the pontifices, who led all state ceremonies. He built the Temple of Janus. Its doors were open during war and closed during peace.
And under Numa, were the doors ever open?
The legend says no. For his whole 43-year rule, the doors of war stayed shut. He gave Rome its soul. He taught them that respecting the gods and being just was more powerful than any army.
That sounds nice. But I think the peace did not last. A city of soldiers probably gets bored after 40 years of quiet.
You are very right. After Numa died, things changed again. The next king was Tullus Hostilius. He loved war as much as Numa loved peace. His rule was all about growing Rome by fighting. He started a war with Rome's mother city, Alba Longa.
The city started by Aeneas' son, right? Why attack your own family?
Because in the ancient world, only one power could be strongest in an area. Their war story is famous. To avoid a big battle, they agreed to a fight between champions. 3 Roman brothers, the Horatii, fought 3 Alban brothers, the Curiatii.
I know this story. 2 Romans die. But the last Roman is not hurt. He pretends to run away. This separates the 3 wounded Curiatii. Then he fights and kills them one by one.
Exactly. With that win, Rome took control of Alba Longa completely. Tullus Hostilius forced all its people to move to Rome. This doubled the city's size in one move. He put them on the Caelian Hill. He was a brutal but effective king. He cared only for war.
So we have the warrior, then the priest. Then another warrior. It is like they are building a complete toolkit for an empire. One king makes the spear sharp. The next king builds the altar.
That is a perfect summary. The 4th king was Ancus Marcius. He was Numa's grandson. He tried to balance the 2 extremes. He respected religion, but he was also a practical builder. He started Rome's port city at Ostia. This gave Rome access to the sea and control over the salt trade.
The salt trade sounds a little boring, but I guess it was very important.
It was life. Salt was like the ancient world's refrigerator. Controlling the Via Salaria, the salt road, was like controlling oil today. Ancus also built the first bridge over the Tiber River. It was called the Pons Sublicius. It was a wooden bridge and a great work of engineering for its time. He connected Rome to the wider world.
Since those bridge places are still there, we actually mapped them in the Rome Audio Tour Guide offline app. There is specific audio for the riverfront, so you are not just looking at water. You are looking at history.
Exactly. It helps to see it. To stand where the Pons Sublicius connected the city to the other side of the river changes how you understand its importance. It was the gateway.
So these first 4 kings, Romulus, Numa, Tullus, Ancus, they feel very Roman, or at least Latin and Sabine. They created the city's character. What happens next?
What happens next changes everything. An outsider arrives. He has foreign money and foreign ideas. He has a strong desire for power. He made the Romans look like sleepy villagers. The age of the shepherd kings was over. The age of the Etruscan crown was about to begin.
Etruscan? So we are talking about the people from modern-day Tuscany, north of Rome. I thought they were Rome's great rivals, not their kings.
They were both. In the 7th and 6th centuries before the Common Era, the Etruscan civilization was the strongest power in Italy. They were master metal workers, sailors, and engineers. Their cities were rich and advanced. Rome was still a collection of mud huts. One of these Etruscans decided to make his fortune in this small, promising town.
He saw a new market.
He saw an opportunity. His name was Lucius Tarquinius Priscus. The story says his father was a Greek exile from Corinth. He lived in an Etruscan city, but because he was a foreigner, he could never hold high office there. His ambitious wife, Tarquinius, told him, "This place has no future for you. Let's go to Rome." They welcome outsiders there.
The famous Roman asylum policy that Romulus started. It worked.
It did. The legend says that as they came near Rome, an eagle flew down. It took the cap from Tarquin's head. It flew high into the air. Then it put the cap back on his head. Tarquinius was skilled in prophecy. She said it was a sign from the gods. She said he was meant to be king.
I love that. It is the ancient version of a perfect job interview. So how did he actually get the throne? Did he just show the eagle to everyone?
He used a better method, money and charm. He was rich, generous, and smart. He became a close advisor to King Ancus Marcius. When Ancus died, Tarquin sent the king's young sons away on a hunting trip. While they were gone, he gave a great speech to the people. He convinced them to choose him as king instead.
That is ruthless. But it worked. So what did this first Etruscan king do for Rome? Did he bring that famous Etruscan style with him?
He brought Etruscan size. He thought bigger than any Roman before. He looked at the swampy forum. That was the old cemetery we talked about. He did not see a marsh. He saw a city center. He ordered workers to build a huge drain. It would move the water into the Tiber River. This was the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome.
And that is still there, is not it? Parts of it are still in use today.
They are. It is one of the oldest monuments in Rome. By draining the forum, he created the central public space. This space would define the city for the next 1,000 years. He paved it. He made it the marketplace and political heart of Rome.
So he is the one who truly changed that space. He changed it from a graveyard into a downtown.
Yes. And he did not stop there. He looked at the valley between the Palatine Hill and Aventine Hill. He laid out the first racetrack for chariot races. This was the Circus Maximus. He built the first wooden stands for people to watch. He gave the Romans big public shows.
Bread and circuses, right from the start.
Or at least the circuses. The bread would come later, but his greatest project was right here, on this hill. He began to build the huge temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. This was the temple to Jupiter, best and greatest. It was a statement. It said that Rome's god, and therefore Rome itself, was meant to be the greatest.
He sounds more like a business investor than a king. Draining swamps, building stadiums, starting huge branding projects.
That is a very good way to put it. He brought Etruscan symbols of power. These were the purple toga, the ivory throne, and the 12 lictors carrying the fasces. The fasces were a bundle of rods with an axe. He was making the monarchy more professional. But his ambition created enemies. The sons of Ancus Marcius, the ones he had cheated, had not forgotten.
I was wondering about them. They cannot have been happy about that hunting trip.
They were not. After 38 years of Tarquin's rule, they hired 2 killers. The killers dressed as shepherds. They went to the king at the palace. They pretended to have an argument. When Tarquin turned to listen to one man, the other hit his head with an axe.
A brutal end. So the throne went back to the old king's family?
Ah, but they did not understand his wife, Queen Tanaquil. She was very smart. She quickly closed the palace doors. She told everyone the king was only hurt. She said he was getting better. She also said that he had chosen his favorite man to rule for him. This man's name was Servius Tullius.
A classic cover-up. She bought herself time.
She did more than that. She let Servius Tullius build his power. When she finally said that Tarquin was dead, it was too late. The men who hired the killers could not stop it. The throne was already with her chosen man. The Etruscan family of kings was safe.
Okay, this is an incredible story. It has prophecies, political plans, murder, and a brilliant queen controlling things from behind the scenes. But it leads me to a very important question. How do we know any of this is true? Did these people really live?
That is the big question, Sarah. And the honest answer is, we do not know for sure.
Wait, what? We have their names, their stories, the things they built. Are you telling me they might just be characters in a story?
Not a story, but a national epic. Our main writers for this time, like Livy wrote 500 years after these events, they used older records, spoken stories, and family histories. Many of these stories were made to make their ancestors look great.
So they were putting together a story from pieces. They probably filled the empty spaces with guesses and a lot of national pride.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The stories of the kings are like a perfect, beautiful Roman vase. It tells a clear and exciting story. Archaeology, on the other hand, gives us a pile of broken pieces. We can see the material and the color. We can say how old it is. But we cannot read the story on it.
So what do the archaeological pieces tell us about this time?
They tell us that the stories are not exactly true, but they contain a deeper truth. Archaeology shows that in the late 7th and 6th centuries BC, Rome changed a lot. We find the first stone road in the Roman Forum, right where the story says Tarquin drained it. We find holes in the ground on the Capitoline hill from that same time. These holes were for very big, important buildings.
So the great building projects happened. But maybe a king named Tarquinius Priscus was not the one personally giving the orders.
Precisely. We see a lot of Greek and Etruscan pottery coming into Rome. This shows Rome was becoming a major center for trade. This matches the story of Tarquin's arrival. We can see the city grow. We can see the first defensive walls being built. We cannot prove that a single king lived as a real person. But we can prove that the idea of kingship was real. Centralized power, big public works, a more complex society, these things were absolutely real.
So we should think of the kings not as real people, but as symbols of big changes? Numa represents the start of Roman religion. Tarquin represents the time of Etruscan city building.
That is the most sensible way to look at it. They are founding myths. They explain how Rome became Rome. The stories give a human face to big, slow historical changes. And the next king, the one Queen Tanaquil put on the throne, he represents maybe the most important change of all. He invented the idea of the Roman citizen.
Okay, so tell me about this man, Servius Tullius, the one Tanakill put in power after her husband's murder. Where did he come from?
His origin story is one of the most mysterious and magical in all of Roman history. The most common version says he was the son of a slave woman in the royal palace. One day when he was a boy and sleeping, his head suddenly caught fire.
His head did what?
It was surrounded by a quiet, harmless fire. Everyone was very scared. But Queen Tanakill the prophetess told them not to put it out. She saw it as a sign from the gods. She told her husband, "This boy will one day be a light for our house in a dark time." From that moment they raised him as their own son.
A boy born from a slave, marked by the gods for greatness. That's a powerful story. It feels like it has a message.
It has a very radical message. It says a person's value comes from their character and fate, not from their birth. And Servius Tullius would build that idea into the very structure of the Roman state. He was a great reformer. He was perhaps the most important of all the kings.
More important than the man who built the Great Sewer? That is a very high standard.
People say he built the first real city wall. It went around all 7 hills. What we call the Servian Wall today is actually a later rebuild, but you can still see big parts of it near the train station. They show you the size of his idea. It was a huge circle of big stone blocks. It was almost 7 miles long.
So he was defining the physical city. He was drawing a line between what was Rome and what was not Rome.
Yes, but he also defined the social city. His biggest change was the census. He was the first to count every single male citizen. He wrote down how much property each man owned. Then he gave each man a place in society. This place was based on his wealth, not on his family name.
Wait, so he created a class system based on money? That sounds a little not magical.
It was a big change. Before Servius, your power came from your clan, your family. These were the powerful aristocratic families. You were a Cornelius or a Fabius. That name was all that mattered. Servius broke that power. He divided all the citizens into classes, like a pyramid. At the top were the super-rich, the knights. Below them were 5 classes of soldiers. Your class depended on how much armor you could buy. At the very bottom were the proletarii. These people had nothing but their children.
Proletari? Like proletariat?
Yes, the very same word. They were too poor to be soldiers. Their job for the state was to have children, future citizens. This new organization was called the Centuriate Assembly. It was both the army and the main political group. And here is the clever part. The richest groups were smaller, but they had more voting power.
Ah, I see. It is a system where the rich have more say. This is because they give more to the army. No taxation without representation, but the other way. More contribution, more representation.
Exactly. It was not democratic like today, but it was a form of social mobility. If you were born poor but became rich, you could move up. Your money mattered more than your family. He also divided the city into 4 city tribes. He divided the countryside into country tribes. Your tribe was your address, your voting district. This was another way to break the old family loyalties. It created a direct link between the citizen and the state.
This is very complex. If you are exploring Rome and want to understand these old boundaries, the Rome Audio Tour Guide offline app can help. It has complete coverage of the Roman Forum and the areas around it. This is where Servius changes happened. The app works completely offline. It has detailed maps and audio guides in 8 languages. It also has a simple English version for language learners.
It would certainly help you see the huge size of the Servian wall. The wall was the physical container for this new social system. The wall enclosed the people he was counting.
So how did the old aristocrats react to all this? These were the men whose power he was breaking. I cannot imagine they were happy.
They were not happy. And this is where the story turns dark. Servius Tullius had 2 daughters. He married them to the 2 sons of the previous king, Tarquinius Priscus. One daughter, named Tullia, was gentle and kind. She married an arrogant, violent man named Lucius Tarquinius. Her sister was ambitious and cruel. She married Lucius' gentle brother.
Let me guess. The ambitious sister and the ambitious brother thought they would be a better match.
They did. They arranged the murders of their husbands and wives. Then they married each other. This new, power-hungry couple saw the old King Servius as a problem. Tullia, his own daughter, kept pushing her new husband. She told him to take the throne.
This is like a soap opera.
A very bloody one. One day, the young Tarquin marched into the forum. Tullia had encouraged him. He had a group of armed men with him. He sat on the throne in the Senate house. He declared himself king. The old King Servius rushed to confront him. Tarquin picked him up and threw him down the stone steps.
No.
Servius lay on the ground, wounded and bleeding. The new king's killers finished him off in the street. And then comes the most horrible part of the story. His daughter, Tullia, was racing to the forum in her chariot. She wanted to congratulate her husband. She saw her father's body lying in the road. Her driver tried to turn away, but she ordered him to drive on. The chariot rolled over her father's dead body. His blood covered her clothes and the carriage. After that, people called the street the Vicus Celeratus. That means the street of crime. With that act of ultimate disrespect, the reign of the reformer ended. The reign of the tyrant began.
That is one of the most chilling stories I have ever heard. Driving a chariot over your own father's body. So this is the man who becomes the last king of Rome? Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, which means
Tarquin the Proud, or Tarquin the Arrogant, and he acted just like that name. He took the throne with violence. He did not win it by a vote. He ruled by making people afraid. He used his own group of guards. He killed senators he did not trust. He took their land and money. He ignored the laws of Servius Tullius. He treated the whole country like his own personal thing.
So he was a complete tyrant. Servius worked hard to build a country with laws and rules. Then this man comes and destroys it all. He just wanted power for himself.
Yes, but he was also very strong in a cruel way. He was a great army leader. He made Roman land bigger. And he was a great builder. He used money from war. He also forced Roman people to work for him. He finally finished the big projects his father started. He finally finished the temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus. That's the temple we have been standing under all day.
The temple we imagined at the start of our talk.
That exact one. He used war money and forced workers. He brought the best Etruscan artists. They made a huge statue of Jupiter from clay. It was painted red. It showed Jupiter driving a chariot and holding a lightning bolt. It was so amazing that people remembered it for hundreds of years. They even said that when they baked the clay statue, its face seemed to smile.
Power and arrogance. That seems like a dangerous mix. It feels like something must break.
It did. The breaking point happened not in Rome, but at an army camp. The king's son, Sextus Tarquinius, was drinking with other young rich men. One of them was his cousin, Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus. They started to argue. They argued about which man had the best wife.
Oh no, this sounds like it will end badly.
To decide the argument, they rode back to Rome. They wanted to surprise their wives. They found the other wives eating and having fun at a party. But when they went to Collatinus' house, they found his wife, Lucretia. She was sitting at home. She was spinning wool with her female servants. She had won the contest.
A perfect Roman wife.
A perfect example of goodness. But her beauty and her goodness made the king's son, Sextus, want her. A few days later, he returned to her house alone. She welcomed him as a guest, as her husband's family member. But in the middle of the night, he went to her room. He held a sword to her and threatened her. She said she was not afraid to die, but then he told her his plan. If she fought him, he would kill her and a male slave. Then he would put their bodies together without clothes. He would say he caught them together, being unfaithful. He threatened her not with death, but with shame forever.
That's evil. He was attacking her good name. For a Roman noblewoman, her good name was everything.
It was. And so she let him do it. The next morning, she sent for her husband and her father. She told them what happened. She made them promise to get revenge for her. Then, before they could stop her, she pulled out a knife she had hidden in her clothes. She killed herself.
Because in her mind she was no longer clean and pure.
She said, "No bad woman shall live because of my example." Her death was a protest. It was a sacrifice to prove she was good. Her husband and father were full of sadness, but one of their friends was there. His name was Lucius Junius Brutus. He was the king's nephew. For a long time he pretended to be stupid to stay alive. He pulled the bloody knife from her chest.
The stupid man was just waiting for his moment.
Yes, he held up the knife. He made a terrible promise. He said, "By this pure blood I swear, I ask you, gods, to hear my promise. I will chase Lucius Tarquinius Superbus and his bad wife and all their children. I will use fire and sword and all my strength. I will not let them or anyone else be king in Rome."
And that was it? That was the start?
That was the explosion. Brutus had them carry Lucretia's body to the forum. He told the people the whole story. He told them about the king's cruel rule, the forced work, and now this final, terrible crime against a Roman wife. The city exploded with anger. They closed the city gates. They said the king and his family must leave forever. They ended the rule of kings forever. When Tarquin the Proud rushed back from the army camp, he found the gates locked. He was locked out of his own city. The age of kings was over.
Wow. So after 244 years, 7 kings and 1 terrible crime, the rule of kings is gone. But what happens to everything they built? When you have a big change like that, do people want to destroy everything from the old rulers?
That is often the feeling, yes, to forget the bad ruler. But the Romans were very practical. They did not destroy the temple of Jupiter. They did not fill in the Cloaca Maxima. That's the big sewer. They did not break down the Servian wall. They kept the buildings. They just changed the government.
I like that. So what parts of the king's buildings stayed and became part of the new Roman Republic?
Many important parts. The Senate, which gave advice to the kings, became the main government group for the Republic. The religious jobs the kings made, like the Pontifex Maximus and the augurs, were kept. But now people voted for these jobs. They did not get them from a king. The king's religious work went to a new priest called the Rex Sacrorum. That means king of the sacred rites. But they gave him no political power on purpose.
So they kept the religious acts, but took away their political power. They wanted the gods to like them, but not a king's power.
Exactly. The census and the centuriate assembly were created by Servius Tullius. They became the most important part of the Republican army. They also became the main group for voting. The system made by a king was now used to run a state without a king. They took the king's tools and used them for a new purpose.
And what about the top job? Who replaced the king? You cannot just have an empty space of power.
They replaced one king with 2 men. They were called consuls. They had the highest power, like the king. But there were 2 big limits. First, they only served for 1 year. Second, each consul could stop the other's action. He could say no.
So time limits and a system to control power, right from the start. They wanted to be sure no single person could ever have that much power again.
That was the main idea of the new republic. They had a deep and strong hate for the word rex. That is the Latin word for king. The memory of Tarquin the Proud was so bad. For the next 500 years, the worst thing you could say about a political enemy was that he wanted to be king. That same charge would get Julius Caesar killed. The base of the republic was built on the ghost of the last king.
We are back where we started, on the Capitoline hill. The sun is setting now. The sky over the city is turning a beautiful Roman color of orange and pink. It is beautiful.
It is. From here, you can see the whole story. Down there is the Forum. The kings dried that land and paved it. Over there is the Palatine Hill. That is where Romulus lived in his hut. And right under our feet is the base of the great temple they built, the temple to Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva.
The gods who were supposed to protect the kings.
The gods who were supposed to protect Rome. The kings thought the gods were theirs. But the people decided something different. After they sent Tarquin away, the first 2 consuls of the new republic were Lucretia's husband, Collatinus, and the man who made the promise, Lucius Junius Brutus. One of their first acts was to come up here. They formally gave this temple to the gods.
So they were taking it for themselves, for the new republic.
They were taking the gods for the republic. They were saying, Jupiter, you are the god of a free people now. Your home is the heart of a city that has thrown away cruel rule. They stood here. A king in a purple robe once stood here. Now they stood as elected leaders, as citizens.
It is a powerful idea. The same place, the same stones, can mean something completely different. It was the symbol of a king's total power. Then, in one moment, it becomes the symbol of freedom from that power.
That is the story of Rome. It is a story of constant change, of taking the past and giving it new meaning. For centuries, Romans came up here to this temple. They thanked the gods for their victories. They thanked them not just for defeating their enemies. They thanked them for the victory they won over themselves. The victory over the desire to be ruled by a king.
They ruled us once, the kings with their signs and their total power. But in the end, we chose freedom.
And that choice was made in anger and sadness after Lucretia's tragedy. It was important for 500 years. It is the choice that created the Rome we remember, the Rome of senators and citizens, of laws and armies. The Republic was born right here, on this hill. It was born in the shadow of a temple built by a tyrant.
Before we leave the age of kings behind, let us stop for a moment. Rome remembered 7 kings, not as a list of dates, but as a story.
Each one meant something. And together, they shaped how Romans understood power.
First came Romulus, a founder, a warrior, a king born from violence and survival.
Then came Numa Pompilius. He was peaceful and very religious. He was almost the opposite of Romulus. He gave Rome its religious ceremonies. He gave Rome a sense of order.
The third king was Tullus Hostilius. He was a king of war again. Rome grew bigger, but the balance of power began to crack or break.
After him came Ancus Marcius. He was a bridge builder. He built a real bridge. He also built political bridges or connections.
Then Rome looked outward. The Etruscans arrived. The Etruscans were a powerful people from the north.
Tarquinius Priscus brought grandeur or big, impressive things. He built stone buildings. He built a drainage system. He gave Rome the shape of a true city.
After him came Servius Tullius. He was a reformer. He organized the people. He shifted power quietly.
And finally, Tarquinius Superbus. He was proud, violent, and unchecked. No one could stop him. He is the last king. His rule ended not with reform, but with outrage or great anger.
7 kings, 7 memories, and a lesson Rome never forgot.
Power without limits does not last. And when kings fail, something else must take their place.
That feels like the right place to stop. Giovanni, thank you. This has been an incredible journey. This history feels both like a myth and intensely human.
The pleasure, as always, was all mine, Sarah.
If you want to stand where Lucretia's story changed history, get the Rome Audio Tour Guide offline app. Do not just look at ruins. You can follow our Roman Rhapsody or Two Sides of the Tiber tours. You can see the city through the eyes of the people we talked about today. The app works offline in 8 languages. This includes simple English, so you can focus on the history, not your phone data. Join us next time. We will explore the chaotic early years of the New Republic. It was a time of heroes, villains, and constant war. Rome fought for its very survival,